honest. I will be brutally honest. Ain't nothing but being brutally honest. Coming at you with another video.
What is up, everybody? We are back. Let's welcome our guest once again. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Tom Jensen, a.k.a. Ninercast, man. How's it going?
Doing well, CG. Thanks for having me.
Doing well, man. Aren't you the guy from Blank Check? No, I'm just playing. I'm just playing matches. But in all seriously, man, the Niners season from 2024 just had some disaster, some jokes, man.
Yeah. It's something you want to leave in the rearview mirror and just let it go.
Yeah, it sure does. Like, all this offseason was, hey, we were supposed to make another leap, but it kind of went into our downfall year. Decimated injuries, poor coaching staff decisions, but now, What do you expect from this upcoming season?
I like what they're doing as far as, it's not just solid, it's also bringing in a legit special teams coach. And if they take that kind of approach where they're saying we need to get an upgrade in every area of the team, then that's something that they're going to have to get done. Pterodome, good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you, Pterodome.
So, yeah, I expect them to do well. They've got the easy schedule, but the key is they have to get through the division with a much better record than they did this year.
Yeah.
And you can have an easy schedule, but if you go 1-5 in the division like you did this year, you're done.
Yeah,
so they have to do a lot better in the division games. And that's where my focus is in the draft and free agency is how do you get your team to the point where you're beating the Rams in Arizona and Seattle?
Yeah, I think that's the key is we got to win that division because last year's division, it wasn't all that great, man. It was just kind of like we wanted it more.
Well, it's who executed.
It was more like you guys can have it, man.
Yeah.
Like that's what it seemed like. But yeah, you look at how our coaching staff was. I just really kind of had a little head scratching with Nick Sorensen. Then I had the feeling when they brought Staley, it just didn't seem right.
Well, and Staley didn't do that well with the Chargers. So, what are you really expecting from him? And we never really heard specifically what he did other than do the ball drill.
Yeah. That's all it was. But he was supposed to assist. He was supposed to assist Sorensen, but that's what I never understood that part. Like it just seemed like they were trying to cover up on Sorensen, which it didn't work out.
No, it's they wanted to have a safety net for Sorensen in terms of game planning. So I would imagine that Staley was involved in forming the defensive game plans, but we never heard any specifics on exactly what he did.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing we decided to get Robert Saleh. So all this waiting game kind of seemed like questionable. Like, what happens if we don't get him? Like, what was the plan?
Well, there wasn't one. Part of the problem last year was just you go to the Super Bowl and you fire Wilkes, then okay, who's left? Because a lot of those hires were already made. And so pretty soon it gets to the point where you have to go internal. But I still think that even given the internal candidates, why did you pick him? Yeah. Why didn't you pick Johnny Holland, for example, or the DB coach? Man, I know Kocurek doesn't want to do anything but coach D-line.
Yeah.
But you've got a great mind in Johnny Holland who's done a great job with the linebackers. Why not him?
Yeah.
Why Sorensen? I didn't get that.
Yeah, Sorensen didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, Holland's had the most experience, but I don't know if this was true. But I've heard that he didn't want to take that role either.
Okay, well, then he's like Kocurek. He likes what he does specifically and doesn't have aspirations to go beyond that.
I think
But
Daniel Bullocks would have
I
been a
would
good
still
coach.
ask him though.
Yeah, you
You
could have
want to do
asked him,
this?
but I think some people like to stick in their role, but,
Yeah.
I think Daniel Bullocks was the guy that could have got a chance.
Yeah, he's another one that should have been asked before. Because you look
Yeah.
at the results that he's produced and he's done well.
Yeah, he's done pretty well, but it was like a shocker. I said if anybody was going to be in-house, I would have thought maybe Bullocks would have been more qualified, at least, because
Well,
he kind of feeds off the energy a little more than most players. And you look at other staffs that we brought in. I mean, I think slowly you're going to see KJ Wright going up to the coaching ranks very soon. Like he seems like the kind of guy.
yeah, if you handpick him to go to Mobile, that's sort of a testing ground to see, okay, we're ready to move you up. And
Yeah,
that's a good thing. He's got a good mind. He played intelligent ball in the league. I think that KJ Wright would be a good move.
yeah, it would. And then there's just talks of the Niners interviewing D'Angelo Hall for the DB position.
Yeah,
So
and I like that too. Same reason, smart player.
smart player.
I think that he can be an excellent asset for them.
Yeah, a good mentor to Lenore and help him elevate his game. That would be
Sure.
great.
Sure.
Yeah, and then we go from, I guess going from Brian Sider to Brad Boyer. It just seems interesting. It's just the connection with Sala. It just seems like the recommendation, the energy. It just seems a little different.
It is, though. You look at his record and say it's impressive. Yeah, it's 9 years in New York, 3 coaching regimes. So a lot of people just said, we trust you to take care of special teams. Even when there's head coach turnover, it just says, you got this. And that shows a lot of confidence, faith, and trust in him. The last 5 years outside of, this year they had 5 kickers, so the Jets were a mess. But the prior 5 years, they were top 5 in DVOA and special teams every year. And
that's
three
something
of the 5 years, they were second. Yeah. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
They're a very good team in kick return coverage. They can score. They blocked a kick this year, and they ran a touchdown back this year. So it's someone that can organize in areas that the Niners been weak in.
it's kind of been one of our weakest points. Like that's
Yeah.
one of the things that's been holding us back. So I think that's something we had to emphasize. But when we saw that press conference where he was asked, Kyle was asked that specific question, it kind of just seemed like he was pissed off.
Well, Lynch jumped to his defense, but every report that we heard from content creators who were at camp said that when you got to the special teams practice, it was essentially recess, that everybody just kind of did their own thing and didn't care less, that a lot of people were walking off doing their thing, stretching, what have you. And it didn't seem all that organized, and it didn't seem that there was buy-in, that Kyle was just letting everybody roam free, where it was essentially a break for everyone when they did special teams, as opposed to, we're going to do special teams. We have to hunker down on this. We got to get this right. So I think that's where the perception came from, is that Kyle doesn't care. And they saw that in camp. Now, Lynch can say, nobody cares more than Kyle Shanahan. But yeah, in what respect? Drafting a kicker in the 3rd round is not the kind of interest in special teams I want to see.
Oh yeah, especially getting some other gunners who haven't done nothing. I mean, George Odom's kind of been okay, but other players, it's like you shuffle in other players, and I guess that's how our special teams went really down, because we had a lot of injuries, and a lot of the guys who were contributing pretty well, I think that really did factor into our special teams.
Oh, no question, because there was a lot of turnover. You never knew exactly who you had. And speaking of gunners, there's talk that Ian Charles, the gunner for the Jets, is going to come over and join the Niners.
Oh, yeah, he would be pretty interesting. I think there was another one, Davis, right? Ashton Davis is another one. And then that one linebacker that's kind of like a safety, but he kind of like another, like, I think his name is Sherwood, but he's like another guy we might look at too.
Jamie Sherwood, he was a converted safety into a linebacker, and he had a game with 18 tackles and a game with 17. He was one of the top tacklers on solo tackles throughout the league. So that's something they could use, and it's a good athlete. PFF says he's $7 million per, so he's not that expensive to bring over in free agency.
Maybe to bring him in as a sandbacker for different roles, and then maybe put him on special teams on different situations. But I mean, we can go on with all these guys that seem like good fits, like DJ Reed's a familiar face, but his market value might be a little too much.
14 per is pretty steep for a guy that's 28, but he's coming off a really good year, and Sala trusts him. So my expectation is that even though the price tag's high, that they will bring him.
I mean, I don't know if we're gonna go big on some guys, but a lot of rumors with Myles Garrett, which why we had to be thrown in the mix. It's just crazy. It'd be nice.
Well, yeah, it's somebody where you people said the Niners have been searching for that partner for Nick Bosa forever, and they've whiffed on the draft. And so when the Niners traded for Christian McCaffrey, they finally got the back they needed, and they went to the Super Bowl. And so the thinking is, if you can get the sure thing edge, maybe that can help you. The problem with Garrett is, what's the cost? The current sort of conventional wisdom is first, second, fourth, where it would have to be the 11th pick this year. Second, fourth could be this year or next. But once you get into negotiations where teams are competing against each other, that's the baseline. It's going to go up from there.
Yeah.
And so you're going to get one team that's desperate that's going to say, okay, 2 number ones. And if you're the Niners, do you get PTSD from the Trey Lance deal and say, not doing that? That would be my guess, is that in order to win the negotiation to get Garrett, you're going to have to go 2 number ones, and the Niners won't go to that point.
I don't know. Maybe they might take a chance because they've done it with D4. They've done it with different occasions. But like you said, they might not want to go back to what happened last time with those trades. But
yeah,
I mean, there's always a draft, so you got other guys. But I know you're pretty high on a certain prospect because I've seen it on different videos. But I had it on my mock draft when we were talking about it on Twitter. You said there's no way that guy's going to be in the second round.
Yeah. Well, it depends on who, but the guy that I love is Walter Nolan.
That's what I was talking about.
I think that he's the guy. And where he slots in the draft depends on who you talk to. There are some people that have him in the top 10. There are some people that have him mid-first. And there are some mocks that have him in the 20s. I think that it's more likely that he's like 11 to 15, 11 to 20, depending on who you talk to. But it's one of those eye of the beholder things. But the reason I picked Nolan is he's the best pass rushing defensive tackle in the draft. And that's something that they're going to need. And that's what Saleh wants. You've had Buckner, Quinn, and Williams. He needs to find the next two-way defensive tackle. I think that's Nolan.
Yeah, he kind of seemed like a good choice also because he's moving up draft boards, like you said.
Yeah,
I know you kind of like said this before during Twitter. We were talking about a certain prospect, but I felt like he was moving up his draft board. But I was really feeling the hype on this guy because he just looks like a power kind of pass rusher. But I don't know. Like you said, Mike Green might have some red flags. I don't know.
He's got some personal issues off field. When he was in Virginia a couple years ago, and he left Virginia for Marshall just abruptly. And so people don't know exactly what that is. It's getting talked up. And there are some, Steph Sanchez has heard the specifics on it, and she concludes that the Niners won't draft him. So it's that severe. The thing with Mike Green is just he fits in terms of the speed edge that can create, but I think the two-way defensive tackle inside is a more important need for Saleh. That's the foundation of his defense, is controlling the inside first, not controlling the outside and then dealing with whatever you get inside. So I think that they would value Nolan over an edge. But if Nolan goes, then I could see, and if Mason Graham and Nolan are gone, then I think that they could look at James Pierce. They could go edge, but it's only if their top options at defensive tackle aren't there.
So you think Mike Green would just be off our draft board?
Yeah. I trust Steph's judgment on this.
She knows what she's talking
covering the Niners for a long time. She knows her stuff. I think that if she's making that call, we don't know the specifics yet, but I put a lot of weight behind her opinion. I think that she's right. But beyond that, Mike Green, even if he didn't have these issues, still wouldn't be your first choice at 11. No, I think you got to go inside first.
I mean, like you said, James Pierce is like a guy that coach likes so much.
Yeah, well, Pierce has all the traits. Speed to power, agility, and finishing is still an issue with him because I think he needs to add some more weight. He's like low 240s or 245. So if he can add another 10 pounds of muscle, that'll help him finish. Because there's a lot of tape that you can watch where he's there, but then he doesn't close. And I think that it's basically he needs more wallet. He needs a little bit more power. And if he gets that, then he'll be a beast.
Yeah, I think with proper coaching, the way we coach these guys, you
That
got
too.
you got Mikael Williams, another option, but
Yeah. He hasn't produced, though. He's inconsistent. It's like 3 sacks in his final 7 games for Alabama. It's just that worries me.
I mean, there's another guy that you can use as a chess piece. I mean, besides Abdul Carter, I've heard Jalen Walker's another piece you can have as a
Yeah,
chess piece, like your linebacker or your edge rusher.
right. Though he's much more effective, I would think, in a 3-4 setting than wide 9. But if you want to use Jalen Walker as a linebacker and as a chess piece, then Saleh could design the defense around him. But that's what would be required. If you took Walker, you would need to use him as a chess piece and figure out a way, because you couldn't just make him a an end or an edge in the wide 9. That wouldn't work. He's too
Nah,
small. But he is an intriguing talent. He's new to football. He hasn't been in football that long. He's learning quickly, and he's a great athlete. So if you can put his skills to use, great. But I don't think that he's really a fit. He's more of a 3-4 guy.
yeah, I think like you said, if he was on a different side, like on a 4-3, he would probably be more of a linebacker. But
Right.
so like I don't know about the offensive line picks. I think we're looking at linemen maybe in the second or third round. I don't think we're gonna go in on offensive line like everybody says.
No, well, and a lot of people who are plugged in, who have sources within the organization, keep saying it's defensive line or an offensive weapon.
One of the two, yeah.
Nobody is saying offensive line, and I think that's right. That the best lineman is Will Campbell, who is off the charts in his IQ and his ability, but he has short arms, and so he might have to move inside. Do you want to take a guard at 11? No. There are some people that think Campbell can play a tackle, but we'll see. Um, so I'm not certain of that as far as whether he can make that transfer or not. It'll depend on what are his arm length measurements in Indy. That will tell the tale. If it's too short, then I don't think the Niners would be interested. But I would still expect that a team in the top 10 is going to take Campbell anyway. And then it's okay, who else? And Membu is getting talked up a lot, but he's also being talked up as a guard. Josh Simmons is arguably the best tackle talent, but he's coming off an ACL. So after the Kinlaw experience, do you want to do that again? Probably not.
I mean, you kind of go with the Trent Baalke approach. Yeah, this guy's a first round talent. Let's take this guy. He could be, if not for the injuries, he would be a top first round pick.
Exactly. Though, yeah, he had modern surgery being what it is and recovery and all that. He could be 100%, but I don't think the Niners are willing to take that risk. And the other guy that gets talked up is Kelvin Banks Jr. Everybody that's watching more tape on him conclude that he's a guard, not a tackle.
Seems
And
like
the reason is he lunges constantly, and he's got short arms, and he's a waist bender, and he holds his arms out too wide. He's got a lot of technical issues. So all the mocks that had him top 10, top 15, he's dropping because people are watching the tape and saying, oh, he's not a tackle and he's got issues. So, yeah, Banks is on my do not draft list. He's somebody I do not want. And I don't think that the Niners would be interested anyway. That he's going to, by the time you get to the draft, he's going to be in the 20s, if not lower.
So what offensive lineman do you think Niners would want to get, like personally?
I think the guys they would be interested in Donovan Jackson from Ohio State, who did a great job throughout the college playoffs. I think he gave up 1 pressure and no sacks. And he played guard and tackle at Ohio State and did very well at both.
With those injuries, yeah, he did fill in pretty well. So that can be an intriguing guy because versatility is the most important spot for all these guys. I mean, you can go with – there's a couple of these Georgia linemen that can do versatility also. There's Dylan Fairchild, and then there's what's that dude's name? Rutledge, or I don't know how you say
Rutledge.
Yeah,
Tate Ratledge.
Yeah, Ratledge.
I like both of those guys a lot. I think they're great. They're great linemen, and the Niners value that versatility. But somebody like Jackson, that he could start day one at guard, at tackle. So he's someone that realistically you could say, okay, he can play guard until Trent's done, and then he can go to left tackle. He's got the athleticism and the ability to do that, unlike somebody else like Kelvin Banks, etc. Those guys wouldn't be able to make that transition. Jackson would. He's expected to go very late first or early second. You would probably need to trade up from 43 if he's the guy you wanted. I don't think they are that interested. The other people in Gray Zabel, but I think he's only a center given his arm length. His arm length is 32. So there are teams that might back away from him at guard. Jared Wilson, also from Georgia, he might break the combine record in the 40. He's that fast.
But he might be a good one that can play. Maybe he can play center or guard, one of the two spots.
He could, but ideally you want him at center, and somebody with that level of speed can really do a lot in this scheme. And that's something that the Niners look at is speed in the offensive line. That's something Kyle has reacted to from the combine measurements in the past.
Yeah, so we're looking at versatility mostly at the offensive line. So, like a guy like you said, Donovan Jackson would probably be the most ideal guy we probably want to get. Two of the Georgia linemen seem obvious too, but I think this may be a shocker for some people, but I think we might go a number 2 tight end because Matt Miyoko put in some crazy mock draft. How would you like that scenario? Let's say, what if we do get Tyler Warren? How would that feel?
Well, I can understand why Kyle would do that. But if no one is on the board, I would shake my head a little bit. Here's the pro and the con on Tyler Warren. The pro, the biggest issue this offense has is red zone touchdowns.
Yeah, and he can do that.
17 red zone touchdowns for Tyler Warren in the last 2 years. Exceptionally productive in there. And that part of that is because of his power. But on the con, the power comes from being a 25-year-old playing in college. So when you transfer that to the NFL, is he going to have the same physicality edge? Maybe not. So from a pure tight end perspective, in terms of looking forward, Colston Loveland is a better tight end prospect. He's younger, he's faster, and he'll have more time as your first round pick, and he'll contribute better over time. But Shanahan is going to look at this in terms of the now. And you say, Tyler Warren is a dynamic athlete. He's got the power we need. And we can go to 12 personnel right away. And he'd be the replacement for Juszczyk. And you'd go to 12 personnel a lot. And you could use Warren just as you use Juszczyk in terms of lining it up anywhere. He scored red zone touchdowns as a runner. He can do that. He can line up anywhere. He's got the speed to do it to a degree. And he's not as fast as Loveland. Loveland's faster. So we'll see. But I think that it's possible they look at him because, to me, they need that tight end too. Kittle's 31. He's getting more fragile. He's going to miss games. And if Kittle misses a game, where is this team? Without that blocking, without his receiving, they're hopeless. So they need to get a great two-way tight end. The problem is there's only 4 of them in this draft. There's Warren, Loveland, Elijah Arroyo, who played so well at Mobile, and Mason Taylor from LSU. Those are the 4. And some of the talk is all 4 will go in the first round. I don't think that's going to happen. I think one will drift. And then the Niners are probably, in my opinion, going to take a tight end at 43, if not move up for one from 43 to get that tight end too, because it's that big of a need. And the Niners with 12 personnel become a beast. And it's also how you can deal with the red zone. So it benefits the team in a lot of ways. You still get somebody that helps improve your run blocking. You get another weapon, especially in the red zone, and you get a future replacement for Kittle. It's a lot of value to the team in getting that tight end too. But he has to be two-way. If he's only one, if you're dealing with the Oregon tight end or Helm from Texas, their blocking is okay at best. And so are you really going to use them in 12 personnel when they're not a great blocker? Probably not. And Fannin from Bowling Green, incredible receiver, but he's basically a big receiver. He's only 230. So can you use him as an inline blocker? No. You can move him around a lot. You could move him around like they do Juice, but he's not what they need. What they need is 12 personnel inline blocker. So it's one of those 4.
So I guess from those 4 traits, so you're saying like so easily Loveland would be hands down if we were to go that route, but then Tyler Warren would just be too highly. So I don't know. I don't think we're going to go with him as much as I like the idea. Like the idea of him being there because he can block and do everything. But why not just wait until maybe the second or third round to get one? Like Mason Taylor should be at that. Yeah.
No, yeah, don't go by the mock simulators where you can get Mason Taylor at 99. He's going to be gone by 43, if not sooner. Yeah,
maybe
again,
43.
all these draft people are saying these tight ends are the 4 tight ends are going to be gone by the early second. So you say third round, okay, that means you're getting the kid from Oregon or the kid from Texas that can't block.
Well, we're probably gonna.
They're not doing that.
So
yeah, it's only those 4.
So you think realistically we'll probably go a tight end early than expected, or no?
Yeah, but I don't think at 11 because that's too high. I mean,
That's too high.
Nolan is a need for the entire defense. It's the chess piece, the foundation that Saleh needs inside. It's critical to his defensive scheme to have that. So I think the defense is the biggest need, and defensive tackle that's a two-way player is the biggest need, and therefore Nolan or Graham if he drops. So that's what I expect, but we'll see. And 43, I think they're going to want one of those tight ends unless they are convinced that a later tight end can block. But if you take somebody like Fannin, you're basically saying that just it's a bigger Juwan Jennings as far as how you use him. He's not going to be an effective blocker. You can use him as a move blocker, but you can't use him in line. And Henderson, or the kid from Oregon, he's a decent blocker. Helm from Texas, he doesn't block. He's not an effective blocker at all.
I mean, but Ferguson seems like a decent blocker, like you say. He seems okay.
He's decent. It's just he's not in the top 3. He's not Tyler Warren or Loveland or Mason Taylor. He's not a blocker of that caliber.
Oh, I mean,
so they could do it, but Papa J, how's it going? Steve-O, how are you? So yeah, I would think that it's going to be a higher priority than people think because tight end 2 does a lot of good for this team in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you get one that can block in the passing game. You can get one that can open up the passing game also. So there's different ways how you can use it. Like I think, like you said, if we get this tight end at 43, I think more than likely it's going to probably be Mason Taylor.
Or Elijah Arroyo, whoever drops. Arroyo looked very good at Mobile.
Dude, he just looked like a mismatch. Like I'm like watching, I'm like, this seems like a Jordan Reed kind of guy.
Yeah. Well, his ball skills are phenomenal. He can catch the ball with his hands and just pluck it out of the air.
Yeah. And what is it with these Miami tight ends, man? They seem like they
exactly
pretty well.
Right. And a third of his receptions this year were 20 yards or more. So that's the kind of player you're getting. Is if you want to be more dynamic on offense, Arroyo is the guy you would want. But I think because he has that skill set, he's the one that might go late first or early second. If out of those 4, I think Taylor is the one that's most likely to drop to them. And I would rank him as the number 3 blocker behind Warren and Loveland.
But the chances of us getting one of those titles would have to be second round at this point, or maybe moving up the spot.
Yeah, unless they wanted to deal down from 11, get extra picks, and then take Loveland and get another pick in the second so they could do other things. If they're sold on the second round defensive tackles, for example, then that's a possibility that they could try to deal down to get more picks. Because where you want to be is between 20 and 60 is the heart of this draft. That's where the value is. And a lot of those guys are grouped together. They're not that separated. So if you can get multiple picks in there, that's the rationale for moving down from 11. But I would say that because you're at 11, you got to take advantage of the fact that you're there because it's so rare that you're going to get to pick that early. Yeah. So if you get a chance to identify a player who you think will be a star, you're going to have to stay at 11 and go get that guy.
Stay at 11, but if you feel like those guys are gone, you could just trade down and get some extra picks and still be able to get who you want.
Yeah, it depends on who falls, but running scenarios, almost every time I run a scenario, it's Nolan or Mason Graham is still there at 11.
That would be that would be a no-brainer.
Right. And so I had a couple of scenarios where both are gone in the top 10, but it's unlikely. But if that happened, then I think they would go Pierce instead at 11, and you're still getting a high-end talent. So those are the 3 guys that I would say that if I had to put money down in Vegas, it's those three for the pick at 11. I get the argument for Tyler Warren, but I think that they'll take their chances in trying to get another tight end at 43.
43. I would hope and pray that it's either Royal or Mason Taylor.
Yeah, well, that's the only reason you would. If those guys are gone, you pivot and do another one. The other guy at 43, I think Kyle would love, is Travion Henderson from Ohio State. He's a perfect fit. Home run threat. He's a threat running and receiving. He's a great blocker in pass pro. And the thing that Kyle would absolutely love is the no lost fumbles in his career at Ohio State. He's fumbled a few, but the team has recovered them. And I think that's what separates Ashton Jeanty from Henderson, is that Jeanty fumbles and Henderson doesn't. Henderson does everything.
Going to go this year.
Yeah. And so Henderson, I think Kyle would dearly love to get Henderson. But if Detroit doesn't take Jeanty at 10, then they will be looking at Henderson, and they've got 3 picks early second to go ahead of us at 43. Henderson will be one of those picks. If the Niners, or 2. So if the Niners wanted to get Henderson and the tight ends were gone, they would have to move up to like 38 to get Henderson, because you have to get ahead of the Chicago picks. So that's the plan B, is if the tight ends are gone, I think Kyle would go after Henderson, and he would have to trade up to 38 to do it.
Yeah, it would be kind of ridiculous to go at a tight end, but maybe a D tackle or edge rusher or cornerback or something, or maybe a safety.
Safety could. The guy that I love is Andrew Makuba from Texas. 4.3 speed and 5 picks. He's got ball skills and he closes. He needs to add some weight. He probably needs to add another 5 to 10 pounds. But a free safety with that kind of speed that can close and get picks, ideal. Yeah. So he's the guy that I would want. It's a question of, where does Makuba go? I think that he's someone that you could look at. Possibly he lasts to 75, but you might have to move up a little bit for him. But he's a guy that I would really want to get. The issue would be if they get a safety in free agency or not. What do they do with Hufanga? If they let Hufanga go, could they then look at a safety in free agency?
Probably a veteran, but
they're expensive though. Javon Holland's 19.5, and then you've got a variety of free agents that are at 15, 14 and a half. Cam Bynum from Minnesota would be a good call. He's a very good tackler, and he's got 3 picks this year. He's somebody I'd be interested in, but he's 14.5 too. Trevor Morig from the Raiders. So there's a lot of people you could look at in free agency, but my expectation would be they're going to make one move in the secondary in free agency, and that's probably Reed.
Yeah. Well, Justin Reed, do you think it's possible with him?
Not Justin Reed, but DJ Reed. But yeah, Justin Reed would be another one that they would look at safety if they wanted to do that. Yeah, and that would be a possibility too. I would prefer Bonham because he's younger. Morig is getting a lot of talk, and he's improved dramatically, and he's only 25.
He would be a nice pickup from the Raiders, but I think if we're going into the draft, you were talking about the Texas safety. There's another guy that nobody is even talking about. Billy Bowman's that one guy that could be moving up draft boards. He's got I think he's about 202 pounds, 5'11", but runs a 4.3 or something like that, or similar speed to what you saw with Akuba, whatever his name is.
Akuba, yeah. The concern with Bowman, you look at the game tape and you see him making plays and say, this guy's a playmaker. However, for the Niners, they are consumed by measurements, especially in the secondary. Bowman's T-Rex. He's sub 30 arms, sub 9 hands. The Niners will not draft somebody with those measurements.
I guess with Jimmy Ward, wasn't he like the same thing or no?
Not quite that, but he was shorter in terms of the profile, but they inherited Ward. They didn't take Ward, this regime.
Oh, yeah. But we get a good idea what can happen, but it's the unexpected when it comes to these type of players. We'll know by free agency, but I think if we were to go pretty big in free agency, I think Drew Dolman would probably be the ideal. Who knows? Or maybe somebody we don't even have on our radar.
Could be, but I think Dolman makes a lot of sense. It's just a question of if Kyle is willing to sign off on paying that much. That PFF has him 4 years, $46 million. So it's
That's a lot.
11.5 per. It's a lot of money, but he's one of the best centers in the league. And
Yeah.
the issue with the draft is there are almost no centers in this draft.
Jarrett Wilson would probably be your close second. That's about it.
Well, yeah. So it's Gray Zabel, Jared Wilson, and the guy from BC. Those are the three. And there are people that have mocked a 250 deep draft, and they only have 5 centers overall. So
it's not
part of
that
the
good.
argument for Dahlman is if you're expecting to draft a center, good luck because they'll probably be gone by the time you pick.
So I think we're probably better off going with Dahlman or hoping that
Yeah.
Hennessy can develop nicely. Like since we signed him to another, I mean, we did sign him for 2 years.
Late
And he's
season, 2 years, 2.4, and they love Hennessy. Kyle talked him up, so did Forster, and they wanted to draft him in 2020, so it's somebody they like. I think that the other thing they could do at center, the cheaper option, is they let Hennessy compete with Ben Barch. They re-signed Ben Barch, and then those guys compete with Brendel for center.
Yeah, Brendel's kind of like the kind of guy that just somehow just stays around the roster because Forster seems to be favored on him.
Right. But you look at the results and say it's time to move on from Jake Brendel. And I think that they know that. One of the rumors going into last year's draft was the first pick was going to be either a wide receiver or a center. So if that's true, that shows the thinking that they know they need to upgrade at center.
Well, they could have moved up a spot before the Raiders and got that center.
Sure. Well, they could have got Frazier.
Or Frazier too, but either one.
Yeah. So, frustrating. It's one of those where, okay, you took a 24-year-old wide receiver when you've already got 2 starting receivers and you didn't take a center. Because you look at last year's draft was loaded in tackles and centers and they didn't take one. And now
They
you get
waited
this
one
year's
until the third round.
and there are no centers. So it's just, okay. We'll see how it plays out. But I think that after looking at the draft, I was more sold on Drew Dahlman's a possibility because there are so few centers in the draft.
Yeah. The only one that seems more convincing is pretty much like you said, Zabel, whatever.
Gray Zabel, yeah, but he's late.
Yeah.
He's late first, early second, probably first given the way he played at Mobile, though he was
Jarrett.
a lot better in the reps than he was in the game. So
yeah.
You have to see how he does against live ammo. But I would expect that he's at latest early second above the Niner pick at 43. And I don't think that they would trade up to get Zabel. I think they would trade up to get Henderson or Arroyo or Mason Taylor.
But do you think they would go for so what do you think the draft spot for Jarrett Wilson is, since he's kind of like the other best position at center?
Some people have him, late second. Some people have him lasting to early third. But I think that a lot is going to depend on what he does in Indy. That,
like you said, he can test.
If he breaks the combine 40 record for centers, he'll go up. And he'll go up to mid-second, if not higher. So he's somebody they could look at 43. But again, I think that Kyle's focus is going to be running back and tight end there, not O-line.
Well, I hope it's a tight end. I hope it's not one of those other tight ends that we botched on. I mean,
yeah, no more Cam Latus, please.
I mean, I was just hoping they gave Braden more of a chance to develop, but just doesn't seem to work out for him right now.
Yeah. Papa J asked, what are the chances of getting Dahlman? I think it's dependent on Kyle. Are you willing to spend what it takes to get him? And my issue is, what are your options? If your options are Hennessy and Dahlman and Brendel, or Dahlman, or missing out on the center in the draft, you take Dahlman. But it goes against Kyle's philosophy. He doesn't like spending money in the offensive line. I know that he had Richburg. Richburg got $7 million 1 year in a spike year. The other years were under 5. Alex Mack was paid $495, and that's his last year is 2022. So Kyle is accustomed to paying $5 to $7 million for a center, and now you're saying pay at least 11, maybe 13. I don't know if he'd be willing to do that, but he's the barrier. If Kyle gives the okay, I think that they would be aggressive in going after Dahlman because he makes sense.
Yeah, he would make sense, and that would take off the center as a concern need right there. So we can go with a versatile offensive lineman. Like you said, Donovan Jackson can be an option, or other options like guys who can play any of those spots, like those two Georgia linemen seem like they can play anywhere. So
Yeah, and I think that Fairchild is a possibility for the Niners in the third or the fourth, depending on where he goes.
I mean, he can actually play guard if he wants to, but he does
Yeah.
have a lot of flexibility, and I think the last name just seems pretty cool, Fairchild. Like he's a Fairchild. Yeah, but
Well, and he fits the scheme. He's got great movement skills. He's quick. He's explosive off the line. He fits their skill set profile of what they want.
what
But
about
he's
the other
another
one?
one where it's going to depend on what do you do in Indy. That's going to determine where he's picked.
Yeah, then there's the other one. Ratledge is another one also. I've heard. Is he kind of a fit or not really?
Who?
Ratledge or whatever. The other guard, the one from Georgia.
Ratledge. You mean
Ratledge?
Yeah.
He kind of
Ratledge is a great player. He's physical, powerful, violent hands, good technician. He's third round.
Okay, so would you take Fairchild or him if you had to choose?
I would take Ratledge. I think Ratledge is the better player, but I think that Fairchild is somebody that they're going to see as a better fit.
Scheme fit wise, yeah. Like if we're looking at guys who fit our scheme, Josh Connery comes to mind also, but didn't look too well in the Senior Bowl, but he does fit our scheme.
Connerly was exposed for his one weakness. It's the problem with Connerly is he's a guard with tackle-sized arms. So he doesn't have the strong anchor. He doesn't have the wallet. And he has leverage issues, and he doesn't have that really powerful anchor yet. So, when Green hit him, it's just there's nothing he could do because that's his primary weakness. And he got exposed for it and went viral. That's tough. But he's another one where you could look at, and the Niners would see him as a great fit too because he's so quick. But I don't think that that's somebody they're going to value. Papa J asked, can they get Dahlman, Garrett, and Purdy? I think that's pretty much a reach.
It's unrealistic.
The free agents aren't really an issue. I talked with Jason Hurley, and he gave me a full breakdown on what they'll really have. If they let Hufanga go, they'll have $50 to $55 million in available cap room to spend on outside free agents. He thinks they'll want to roll over 15 to 20 into the next year. So you're really looking at $35 to $40 million that they can spend in free agency. Dahlman at 11 to 13, Reed at 14. There's 27. It's almost gone already. Then if Jamie and Sherwood, there's the other 7. Boom, you're done. So it'll depend on exactly how they structure these deals. If they give people longer deals to create more cap room, and they can do that. So we'll see if this works out. But I think those are the 3. If I had to sign off and say which 3 free agents are the most likely, I would say Reed, Sherwood, Dahlman in that order. Dahlman just because I don't trust Kyle to be willing to spend that much. But on the field, Dahlman makes a huge amount of sense.
Yeah, because he would be a good fit at center, and just the cost. I don't think Kyle's willing to go that route, like you said. That's why Brendel's.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Could be that the need forces a change in his thinking, and if you extend
could
Purdy,
be the need.
Yeah, if you extend Purdy, you would want to make sure that you had better protection than he's got now with Brendel. You want to make certain. Grandizer, thanks, man. If you're going to extend Purdy, you need to do that.
Yeah, he got to. Did you both talk about Eric Banks? He will be a free agent. Yes, we haven't even got to him, but we know the chances of him. I don't see him expecting a return.
No, I think that he will be overpriced from the market for what they would be willing to spend. Is that they're going to want to spend as little as possible there. I think that what they will do is that they will re-sign Ben Barch, who played well but then got hurt. But Barch is somebody that doesn't cost you that much.
Yeah. Grandazzer asked, did you discuss the future of Trent Williams? We haven't even got to that, but I know he wants to play until he's like almost 40 years old or something.
Yeah. Trent wants the money.
That's what it's money. I don't blame him.
When you're getting that kind of money, why not? So, I think that Trent is going to want to continue to play through the contract that he got through that extension. And Kyle is going to be all too willing to ride him into the glue factory. And the question is, can Trent hold up? How many games can he play? Yeah.
You're gonna
What are
need
you
somebody to
paying
step
for
in.
when he misses that many games? He had the tragedy in his own life, so I don't blame him for sitting out the final couple of games because tragic what he went through. So factor that in terms of games missed. I think that they're going to rely on Trent and hope that he lasts throughout the entire contract. And Kyle being Kyle, he's going to say, go Trent. He's not going to say, as every single draft analyst on a national scale says, well, they've got to get an offensive tackle to be the future replacement for Trent Williams. Ask Kyle Shanahan that question. Do you care about that? No.
They're just making up clicks, but
He doesn't think that way, and none of them get that. Kyle isn't overly concerned about replacing Trent Williams. He's concerned about, can he play and how many games can he play? And I can re-sign Jalen Moore, and I've got a backup when he goes down. Yeah. Kyle is not going to place a high priority on a tackle in this draft.
So do you think the chances of Jalen Moore coming back is possible, or you think his value might just test up to be a starter elsewhere?
I think Jalen Moore can come back. He showed some good things though this year, so he might get some interest. I think there's a ceiling where if it's 4.5, they keep him, and if it's more, they'll let him go.
Yeah. Speaking of what he said, Tom Jensen and CG, do you see Banks as an average guard, above average guard? He's kind of like when he first started the first 2 years, he looked like a really good guard. Just
he played well, but the last year or so he hasn't played well. And I think that they will just let him walk and say that Barch is a better player for less money.
Yeah, Barch is cheap and he'll probably do better. And the Niners like to value that kind of stuff. So
right.
Silicus and I think we already talked about this Myles Garrett thing, but I think the chances of getting him is pretty slim because I think this is what's going to get the Browns to try to get more out of return, or maybe try to get Myles Garrett more money.
Yeah, I think the problem is somebody around the league is going to be willing to overpay to get Myles Garrett. So the issue isn't, do you go get Garrett? Is it a good idea to get Garrett? The issue is, are you willing to give up 2 number 1 draft picks to get Garrett? Because that's ultimately what the league is probably going to get to. And I think the Niners back away at that point.
Yeah. Oh, and this does make a lot of sense for Trent Williams, like we just said. Yeah, of course, man. This man needs his money, man. He's got that Rick Ross persona look, man. This silverback, man. He got to have
his rolls. Money. Yeah.
he got to have his money.
He wants his money. Yeah. I don't blame him. Get your money. You're one of the best offensive tackles of all time. Just get your bag. I have no issues.
Yeah, you can miss a couple games, then just come off fresh in the playoffs, and we got you, man.
Yeah.
We just got to get a good backup at least. But since we already broken a lot of the topics, I mean, we can definitely catch on to maybe after the draft or something. We can talk to some prospects that you liked on those drafts, and we can go from there. But hey, dude, it was a lot of fun chit-chatting about the draft and the
great time
off season. But yeah, it's been a great time. Like last year, we started off pretty well, and then we were talking about all the stuff, and I did a little bit of the content kind of similar to what Steph does, a little bit here and there. But I did the in-person with a lot of those other guys.
Yeah, it's cool. It's good to see you growing. So more power to you. Keep it going.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was fun. Yeah, appreciate the time.
This was fun. But we'll answer one last question for Grandizer. I wonder if Everett Banks will get Robert Hunt type contract where a team overpays. I think he will get overpaid. I think a team that how Carolina just overpaid Robert Hunt like $100 million, right?
Yeah. Banks would love that. I don't think he'll get Robert Hunt, but
maybe
I think he'll get more than what we think, because the issue for offensive line is just supply and demand. There's very few that can play. When Banks is on his game, he's worth the money that he's going to get. But where he's playing now, he's not worth that money. And that's why the Niners let him go.
Yeah, I think he's going to be asking too much. But I guess you got one more little question here. But does Tom Jensen have his wish list, that of 2025, that he want the Niners to sign?
Yeah, though it's just me being blue sky as opposed to realist.
Yeah, we can all dream.
Sure. If there's a guy that I really want, it's Poona Ford from the Chargers, because he's the two-way defensive tackle. PFF has him graded over 70 run and pass. He's a legitimate pass rushing threat. I think he'd be a great fit here for what Sulla wants to do. A little bit undersized in height, but a great player. I would love to have him, but PFF says 14 to 17. That ain't happening. So there's no way. So the other defensive tackle that I think they could kick the tires, is to bring DJ Jones back. And he would be, according to PFF, 2 years for 18. And that would be worth it. They need a run stuffer desperately. So if you could sign DJ Jones and draft Walter Nolan, now Sulla has the 2 pieces he needs inside.
Oh, yeah. So, like, as far as my wish list, it would probably be simple. Like, getting a center like Drew Dolman would be nice. But
Sure.
if I had to go with a dream scenario, I've heard that if we offer Khalil Mack a reasonable contract, this guy can come out and decide to play football and play his last year with us. I mean,
maybe they made a run at Mack before when he was with the Raiders, and then Mark Davis shut it down and says, "I'm never trading with you people." Yeah. So nothing you can do there. But I think the Chargers are going to keep Mack because they've got a ton of cap room and they want to keep.
They probably do.
So that'd be tough. The other wish list that I would have is to actually spend at safety. I don't know if they could go Javon Holland because it's 19.5, but Cam Bynum in Minnesota is a guy I really like. I think
Cam Bynum, he's been up and coming for them, so he would be a nice one. But I think if we're looking at the real list, like realistic one, like since we're gonna need a cornerback, I'll throw one out there. Trey Brown from Seattle. I think he might be an actual fit, and I think he might play more nickel, and Lenore would just play the other side.
All they need is a third DB. It doesn't have to be an outside guy. It's just anyone that can go outside or inside and be starter level player. Yeah, and he's an interesting choice. He'd be good. Yeah, but my guess is that what they do in free agency is DJ Reed, Jamie and Sherwood come over from the Jets.
I hope so.
And then maybe, if Kyle allows it, Drew Dolman.
Yeah, that would be a good one. If we can get those, then that's a good way to start off your offseason so far. But I think realistically, we're not going to spend as big, so I think we're just going to try to play this little dollar store little game.
Probably. Though I think that they will at least make one swing and hopefully 2.
Hopefully Drew Dolman.
Yeah, if those swings are DJ Reed and Drew Dolman, they've done well. That would be their best free agent haul in a long time if they got those 2 guys. And Sherwood, that would be one of the best free agent years. Grandizer, thanks for the comments. Appreciate your kindness. Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. But it's been a lot of fun. We'll definitely catch up after the draft for sure, man. But keep doing what you're doing with you and Coach, man. But tell everybody where they can find your social media platform.
Ninercast is on Twitter. I still don't have my YouTube channel up. I want to do videos leading into the draft, so hopefully I'll have my channel up before then. And I will let everybody know on Twitter when that's coming.
Oh, yeah, maybe one day we can do a weekly show one day. Or something. I don't mind.
At some point. We'll see. But I enjoy the time today. So thanks, CJ.
For sure, man.
Appreciate it.
It was a lot of fun, man. And thank you guys for tuning in. We have a blast, and hopefully we see you guys next time.